Our headline game today is for those of you who feel like you've played pretty much everything out there and are looking for something a bit different. Strap yourself in. KinnikuNeku Super Muscle Cat, along with almost everything else that's indescribably weird in media, is based on various Japanese anime series and their tropes from the 90s. It's a sparkling gem of insanity that constantly throws new ideas and minigames at you across its numerous levels, occasionally mixing up action platforming with shooting things out of a unicorn's ass. As KinnikuNeku, or Neku for short, you are a human-cat hybrid bodybuilder, or at least you are when you're wearing your magic pants, and it's your job to repel an alien invasion. You'll bound around as this feline-faced Arnold Schwarzenegger, punching and knee-dropping aliens who will variously try to shoot you, dive bomb or piss on you from a height amongst other attacks, depending on which of the bizarre levels you happen to be traversing. At certain points in each stage you'll meet your friend Lemon, who'll unceremoniously whip your knickers off and transform you into a standard cat. You can't attack in this state, but you can now jump higher and further to clear great distances and climb walls, which is essential for progress through certain parts of the levels and for navigating tricksy paths to a number of different gyms. Once you've discovered a new gym, you'll complete weightlifting mini-games to power up and gain extra strength to bash through previously impervious barriers in certain stages, and you'll also be able to deal with enemies of all types a lot quicker. Helpfully, any gyms you haven't yet visited are highlighted on the level's select screen, so you always know where to go looking for your next upgrade. KinnikuNeku Super Muscle Cat isn't a Metroidvania, and some levels can be over in as little as 1 to 2 minutes if you know where you're going. There are minor difficulty spikes here and there, but the abundance of hit points you'll eventually unlock and replenish at noodle bars, along with stopping to have a shit at the regular checkpoints, mean there's very little to frustrate your progress. My one and only real gripe is with Neku's roll dodge, which is often far too limited to take you past the obstacles it was designed for and can regularly send you crashing into an enemy when you try to avoid their fire. There could be a bit more variety in the enemies, but in the end, the level design is just so enjoyably ridiculous and varied that it's all but guaranteed to keep pulling action platformer fans forward. Don't be fooled by the childish thumbnail art for this game that makes it look like you're getting into the kind of dogshit shovelware that all the main console and PC digital game stores are somehow still allowing. Slopecrashers is brilliant, and if you've missed the N64 snowboard kids for the best part of 3 decades, you owe it to yourself to check this out. As one of a variety of cartoon animals, from a ring-tailed lemur to a chicken, penguin, capybara and several more besides, you snowboard down a variety of genuinely superb courses, littered with huge jumps, shortcuts and obstacles to trick off. You'll pick up a wide variety of offensive and passive Mario Kart style power-ups as you go, and every trick and combo will fill a boost bar to keep you moving at speed. On top of that, you can open your own mini parachute at any point, gliding from cliffside tracks and off buildings to find new routes forward, or simply to correct an overzealous jump. Every ability combines fantastically well, and the courses have been expertly designed to encourage exploration. Racing is the main thrust of the game, with speed divided into 3 classes that you can switch between immediately and play in any mode. Inexperienced or younger players might want to try the slower 2 classes initially to acclimatise, but most of you will want to head straight to the too fast category, which is brilliantly fluid and responsive at a locked or unlocked frame rate of anything up to 120 FPS, if your technology can handle that. Whatever your speed, I'd recommend you remove the speed blur effect in the options, which I find sharpens up the graphics a bit in general. The Slopecrashers campaign will slowly take you through every location in the game, asking you to come in the top 3 of any given race or trick event, beat a ghost in a time trial, or even shoot down a giant boss character before it can hit the bottom of the slope. In addition, you have several side challenges in each race that can be anything from pulling off a set number of tricks to remaining airborne for so long, and ticking these off will help you unlock a wide variety of useful new boards and canopies, in addition to any number of enjoyably silly cosmetic items. I've been playing the PS4 version of the game via PS5, and as you might expect of a brand new indie project, there are some glitches here and there. The complex tracks mean that occasionally the game becomes confused about which way up you are and momentum shifts to take you in the wrong direction. You might not be able to take a route that appears to be a shortcut at all times, and there is some light clipping and texture blur on occasion. But really, none of this is going to bother the vast majority of players, especially with that rock-solid frame rate and an abundance of personality and identity in every location. You can also play the entire game against friends in the very welcome 2 to 4 player split-screen multiplayer, in addition to creating or joining online lobbies. Slopecrashers is faster and more fun than anything we've seen of Sonic Racing Crossworld so far. It's less than a quarter of the price and much more focused than the bloated Mario Kart World, and it won't try and piss microtransactions in your face every 2 minutes like so many other supposed AAA developers are so keen to do these days. Slopecrashers is an extraordinary achievement for a lone developer, and please take a look at this if you can. At first glance, Mighty Switch Force may look like a traditional platform shooter, but there's much more to the 4 games on offer in this collection, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. Each game is centred around a switch mechanic that summons or removes platforms or activates devices with a simple press of a button, in order to solve a variety of very clever and refreshingly quick-fire puzzles that allow you to rescue 5 missing people in each stage. Unlike traditional puzzle platformers where you might come to a full stop for minutes at a time, it's very often clear what you have to do in Mighty Switch Force. It's just the timing you need to get right to pull it off. As such, the game isn't asking you can you do it, but rather how fast, and this makes replayability for the best times and seeking out the hidden collectibles across each stage a real joy. In the first and original game in this collection, you have a straightforward laser gun of sorts that will help you deal with enemies and blast through rock to access new areas or trigger devices. The sequel replaces your gun with a fire hose to douse flames across each stage and activate an entirely different set of contraptions, in addition to the switching block mechanic. The third title on offer, known as the Hyperdrive Edition, is a remake of the first game with modern visuals, extra levels, and brings the camera back slightly to give you more of an overview of each stage, which some players might find quite handy. And finally, we have Mighty Switch Force Academy, which at first glance looks somewhat like Pac-Man. Here you use all the abilities you're familiar with on the one static screen, dropping through the level to get back to the top where necessary, and again, the time challenges on offer here are incredibly addictive. The Mighty Switch Force collection makes fantastic and varied use of just a few very simple ideas, without ever trying to be too clever or obtuse. Some puzzles can and will take several attempts to master, but that's exactly what you'd expect, and with most levels being fairly short, it's very rarely frustrating and great for when you don't have much time. BlazeRush will likely look familiar to anyone who remembers rock and roll racing from the 90s. Sadly, we don't have the excellent soundtrack featuring Black Sabbath and Deep Purple here, but we do have a very rare and enjoyable little arcade racer for up to 4 players locally and 8 online that you can regularly pick up for well under $5 in the sales. Choosing from an excellent variety of futuristic vehicles, with 16 available eventually in the base game and all with nicely varied characteristics, you'll race across several different planets, shooting miniguns and firing rockets to bully your way to the front of the pack. In single or multiplayer, the campaign does a really good job of steadily introducing you to new weapons and mechanics, rewarding you with trophy cups for success and completing certain side challenges to unlock new events and new vehicles. The action is brilliantly chaotic, especially with 4 players sharing the one screen, jostling and knocking each other off the track with the enjoyably playful and hefty physics. Well-timed rockets and boosts will cause elation or devastation right up into the finish line, so dust off your favourite teenage swears, you'll definitely need them here, and you'll probably invent some new ones. Beyond the standard races and time trials, we also have King of the Hill, which awards points to the player that holds first place, with the ultimate winner being the first driver to hit a certain points tally. And then we have the Death Races, in which you're pursued by a bloody great spiky steamroller that eventually catches up and crushes the vehicle in last place. Again, the most points over several rounds wins overall, and these are great fun, even in the dark. Finally, we have one chunk of decent DLC, moving the racing into space and across lava with all new tracks, vehicles, weapons, and the addition of 30 new campaign missions in which to experiment with all the new toys. BlazeRush may be over a decade old now, but it's yet another reminder that great arcade gameplay just doesn't die. It still looks great, feels good, and if you want something to play with 3 friends on the sofa for an evening, hide all the sharp objects in the house and fire this up. If you're looking for some Meat Boy action to tide you over until the brand new 3D outing is released, or even if you've never tried the busted hard but endlessly addictive platformer, this is one of the best traditional puzzle games I've played in a long time. The idea here is immediately familiar. Join up 4 blobs of the same colour to make them disappear, all the while building a meter you can see on the left of the screen here. Every time this fills, it blows a fuse, which acts as a level checkpoint. Blow all the fuses and on you go to the next level. Just as in Puyo Puyo and similar games, you can speed up your blobs, slow them down, rotate and even make them dash from side to side as required, placing them in such a way that will hopefully trigger a lengthy chain reaction to get you out of each level even faster, but you'll have to work for it. Obstructing your plans is an ever-changing environment, increasingly packed full of vicious traps and obstacles, and a lot of the levels continue to evolve as you move through the checkpoints. Blades will cut through your blobs from under you or scythe through a pile waiting to be triggered, and it becomes brilliant fun to navigate the bloodied instruments while trying to move quick enough to explode your chains. Later levels feature lock-on missiles, ghosts, and there are even boss fights. The range of level design is impressive and it becomes very, very difficult to put the game down. It's a shame there isn't any multiplayer to speak of. Stitching each other up with these kinds of levels and tools would have been brilliant fun, and just like the famous platformer the game is based on, there can be sudden difficulty spikes here and there that will force you into tens of restarts at times, but it's just so hard to walk away. You know you can beat that level. Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine cost me £1.59 in a recent PS Store sale, which is about $2 or €2. It's normally only £8 anyway. For that, you're getting an endlessly addictive puzzler with a huge variety of levels that trophy and achievement hunters will struggle to resist. Developed by the small team behind the excellent pixel art Metroidvania Agalos, which I covered in a video a little while back, Tanuki Justice is a return to the classic 8-bit action platformers of the 80s. As 1 or 2 ninja raccoons, you jump and shuriken your way through 6 varied and challenging levels, upgrading your principal weapon as you go and eventually charging a massive ninja star for crowd control or for taking a huge chunk out of a boss's life bar. It's a real pleasure to play a platformer that just gets on with it, with no cutscene bollocks. The controls are brilliantly responsive, the attacks are satisfying, and there's absolutely no backtracking. And while the levels may be fairly compact, there's plenty of variety across each of them, whether that's being pursued by a giant rock-eating monster, riding a runaway cart in a Wild West, or cutting through ghosts and zombies in classic platform style. Tanuki Justice isn't going to trouble any Game of the Year lists, and it isn't trying to. It's a short game with a difficulty that does crescendo in the final level, but it's one that's never unfair and remains eminently playable throughout its brief runtime. If the words Nintendo Entertainment System mean anything to you, check this out. Under Defeat is perfect for those of us who are just looking for some solid shooter catharsis. Choosing from one of 4 different attack choppers, you'll shoot your way across 5 scrolling levels while pivoting up to 180 degrees, either by holding down a button and tilting, or using the newly implemented twin stick controls. I find the latter to be the much more precise and accurate, allowing for a constant spew of bullets as you slide across the screen around enemy fire. I covered a similar game to this, Zero Gunner 2, in another video recently, and anyone who's familiar with that will quickly find themselves at home here. Each helicopter has its own fire patterns and the ability to fart a screen-clearing cluster bomb up the screen in emergencies. You can choose from several different play modes and difficulty settings, from the back to basics arcade original to the modern widescreen version. Either way, you'll only have a limited number of credits to get across the whole game, and there's no level select when your coins have dried up, as you might expect. This is pure arcade. Under Defeat is exactly what it appears to be, and well tuned to provide maximum bullet-based satisfaction when you can't be bothered to think. Yoku's Island Express is a pinball platformer where you play as a kind of dung beetle courier. I'll let you take a moment with that sentence. Aren't video games great? Yoku arrives on Mokumana Island to find a number of its weird and wonderful residents are in need of food and supplies, and as you bounce through the one huge interconnected map to find these, you'll get ever closer to uncovering the truth about a certain malevolent character that's been causing chaos. The game wastes no time in introducing you to its simple controls and mechanics. Yoku can only move left and right, pushing or pulling a pinball as opposed to a lump of shit at all times. He doesn't jump, attack, or do anything else initially. Instead, you bounce around the world using traditional pinball flippers, with those coloured blue being mapped to the left trigger of a gamepad and any yellow on the right. The physics are excellent, and just like a real pinball table, it's very satisfying to nail a route and watch Yoku power through a section, ending up in exactly the spot you need for a collection, or to gather up some fruit that you'll need to trade to open up flippers and pathways. I like how the game very rarely insists that you choose one path or another to progress. You're allowed to explore and talk to any of the characters you like, opening up new areas and abilities at your own pace. Land on a thorn or a spike and you'll only ever lose a piece of fruit. Lose all your fruit and you'll go back to the last checkpoint, which will likely only be moments away. The game's challenge is simply in how to move forward, jumping, flying and exploding walls as you go. It doesn't look to punish you for every misstep like so many traditional platformers do. There can be a certain amount of frustration in knowing exactly what you have to do or where you have to reach, but constantly missing your target. Generally, you can alleviate the problem just by taking a moment and letting things slow down, then only triggering a flipper at the right time. Mindlessly hammering the buttons won't help you here. Yoku's Island Express is a brilliantly refreshing little game that regularly costs less than £2 in the sales. It's easy to understand and great fun to explore, and if you've ever been a fan of pinball in any way, you should definitely take a look at this. Instead of wielding a limp stick and shouting bollocks at the baddies, what if you gave Hermione from Harry Potter an AK-47 to start an adventure? Now there's a spin-off TV series. You're welcome, JK. Trigger Witch is a twin-stick shooter with very light RPG mechanics, played out across a nicely varied 16-bit landscape. It's effortlessly enjoyable across its relatively generous runtime of around 8 to 10 hours, depending on how interested you are in scouting out all the secrets. As Colette, you have graduated into the Clip, an elite band of protectors who must now track down and defeat the mysterious man in black, who is definitely not who you're expecting, trust me. There's a decent little story rumbling along here in fairness, and it serves as an engaging enough backdrop to scouring the colourful realms of Evertonia, shredding a variety of monsters, seeking out dungeons and regularly upgrading your weapons and abilities. The pacing has been judged very well in Trigger Witch, with a clear indication of what you're supposed to be doing at all times and plenty of side quests, if you want them, found by exploring the map at your own pace. You can even bring a friend along for local multiplayer, which even non-gamers seem to enjoy in my experience, given the ease of the controls and the relatively simple objectives. Enemy types do start to become familiar fairly early on, but there's a good variety in the regions you'll explore and some really entertaining boss battles and some minor puzzles. Upgrading through the different types of machine guns, shotguns, mortars and even flamethrowers is great fun, and there's a surprising amount of heft with the audio-visual feedback that makes every encounter an enjoyable tussle. In summary, Trigger Witch is a brilliant little package that doesn't want to waste a second of your time with abstract storytelling or aimless wandering or backtracking. It's not the sternest challenge in the world, but it fills every minute with a sense of fun and progression that makes it very hard to put down. NeverAwake is a rare twin-stick shooter that got me hooked in a way I didn't expect. Your player character is unconscious in hospital for reasons unknown, and you need to work your way through her subconscious, taking out all manner of things she doesn't like in a waking world, such as vegetables, dogs, dentists and school, in order to become unshackled and finally open your eyes again. As you can see, the art style is suitably dark and surreal, with enemies that are often twisted variants on everyday objects like vegetables, syringes and dolls. Unusually, progress in the game is achieved by gathering up a set number of souls, at which point the level ends automatically. If necessary, you'll keep looping through the bite-sized stages until you've gathered what you need, and as with many of the other games on this list, the challenge around the speed to complete a level becomes very addictive. Win or lose, you're always unlocking power-ups at a steady rate, which can be anything from extra hit points, a better main weapon or sub-weapon, and plenty more besides. Difficulty is pitched well, and the spectacle is such that you always maintain a morbid curiosity in what happens next. The bosses are a highlight. Amongst others, you'll fight a giant aubergine, a giant dog, and an ex-classmate, with some optional and secret encounters depending on your choices and discoveries in previous levels. There are a lot of recycled basic enemy types in NeverAwake, and while the art style is generally excellent, your player character seems somewhat incongruous and even unfinished, with no way to customize her appearance. It's hardly a deal breaker, but it is a shame when everything else has been drawn with such character. NeverAwake is a short, simple pleasure that should appeal to speedrunners and those gamers with slightly darker tastes. So, how many of these games have you played? What obscure games do you know about that we need to try? Please let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to leave me a like and ding your notification WhatsApp if that's not too much trouble. I will be back very soon with a lot more games, new and old. But cheers for now.